I can get us started. But stand here with me. You may want to say something while I'm talking.
Yeah, I will
And
stand
then
with you.
and then we'll switch.
But you should be 2 pages.
Yeah.
No.
There's the front. There's this.
Oh, you did it on both
this
sides.
and then this.
Yeah, okay.
This is.
So why don't I take over after the big print? Shall I take over here for the reports? If you do this.
Okay.
And then I'll go from there.
Okay, but you were gonna, and you've got the stuff, the Clara Belenas and
Yeah,
all
I'll
of
do
that.
all that.
Okay, perfect. Okay. But we can stand up here together, don't you think?
Yeah.
Thank you, Penelope. Printed on one page. Okay. I think we're live. So if we could get everybody to just have a seat. Up. A few more stragglers from outside. Come on in, guys. So, David, where exactly is the camera? Right up here. Okay.
Above the exit sign.
Okay, I see it, yeah. Okay, is everybody ready to get started? We're going to start by I'm going to ask all of you to turn and wave at that camera because I'm hoping that the members who aren't here filling these seats are at home. So for those of you who have joined us at home, this is our first foray into YouTube TV. Let's hope it's working. Roz and I are so pleased that we are all here in person, and we just wish this whole auditorium were filled. We're hoping by the end of the year that's where we'll be. We're going to continue to try to do our meetings in person, including on December 16th next month, when we're going to be having that fabulous holiday pantry and a greenery exchange. Oh, well, I meant they're going to turn it up. Oh. Take your man. Is that better? Can you hear now? Okay. Should I start over? Okay. Thrilled that we're all here together. Going to keep trying to meet in person. We're going to do no frills until we can gradually add things. Next month on December 16th, we're going to add the holiday pantry and the greenery exchange. It'll be out in the courtyard so that we can keep things safe. We're hoping you're going to come to that meeting and that you will also participate in those 2 events. There is a change in the program information. Paige Dickinson from back east is not going to come until next year. But our own member, Annette Gomez, who you will probably remember from a few years ago, did a holiday workshop for us, has graciously decided to step in and help us. So she's going to do a workshop for us here. And I know we all love that, and we appreciate her, and we appreciate that. That's something to look forward to. I have to say that Jeannie Smith and Elaine Butts and Kim and Jean have been really gracious at helping us deal with all these changes, so we thank you. And again, for those who are unable to participate in December, we're going to have the YouTube channel. I should tell you that the YouTube channel will have this recorded, so if someone misses a program, they can actually go to the channel and watch it afterwards, which is very exciting. We want to say thanks to everyone who was involved in the drive-by at Sue Kalish's home. You know this stuff, so you tell them about that.
Okay, so those of you who weren't there on November 11th, we did a drive-by. The Gardeners Exchange and the Schoolyard Gardens were the committees who organized it. And we had a great time on the front lawn. People picked up yearbooks, people signed cards for the Christmas Poinsettia campaign. There were people coming with pots and gardening equipment and exchanging things on the Gardeners Exchange stall. The total obtained for the whole day was $1,152, with $195 going to My Favorite Things and $957 going to Schoolyard Gardens. And so everyone was happy. Thank you so much for everybody who was part of it, and it was nice for everyone to get back together again.
We also want to thank Debbie Nichols from the Moores Healing Garden. She held a work group, I believe it was last weekend. We heard rave reviews of what they were able to accomplish. Dr. Scott Lipman, who is the director of the Moores Cancer Center, was gracious enough to cater a lunch. And we both appreciate his support and the increasing support we're beginning to get again from the staff that's there. As always, Roz and I salute Debbie Nichols, and I know when you see her, you will thank her and her team because they represent us so well in the community. We received a couple of letters from the Veterans Administration Medical Center about the Pumpkins for Patriots. They had it all over their website with pictures and very nice thank you notes for that work. And we're going to put those letters in the Spindrift so you can see that. And we also want to thank Sarah Carpenter, who is not here this morning. She is sandwiched between delivering children to school and preschool and getting and picking them up from preschool, because she is the backbone of our website and all the work we're trying to do with getting things out. But we also want to thank David Estrin, who's in the back, and he'll give us a wave. And he is helping us and has been helping us behind the scenes get this YouTube channel up, and we're really grateful for that. We're hoping that we were given some historical discs, one, some recordings from past expressions programs, and also one of Adrian doing a flower demonstration, and we're hoping to get those converted and be able to put those on our YouTube channel as well, because we thought that would be great fun. You're on.
I'm on. Okay, so we're going to move on and do some reports. So first of all, we have an audit report. So Cindy, can you come up and tell us all about that?
Okay, hi. Good to see everyone this morning. Dory McHugh audited the books for the year ending June 30, 2021. She found no discrepancies, and it has been filed. All the tax returns are filed, and we are good to go. That's about it, short and sweet.
We love short and sweet with reports. Okay, so the next report is Linda Morse, and she's going to tell us about the upcoming holiday pantry.
All right, I'm comfortable that most of you know about the pantry sale and what it is. It's a lot of fun, it's very lively, and it's on for next month. A new member, Betsy Mitchell, has taken the reins, and I'm just assisting her this year, but she couldn't be here. So I just wanted to tell you it'll be out on the patio at the next meeting, starting at 9. We'll have a couple tables there. And just if you recall, savory and sweet items are brought by the membership, and I hope everybody rallies around this event because it's really the biggest fundraiser of the year. And like they said, there'll be greens also. But packaging kind of sells your product, so if you can think of creative ways to put things on cookies or nice tins or packaged nuts, little boxes, and label what it is. And please bring your items before 9 o'clock and we'll display them, and then people can shop, and it's just a real good time. So thank you. I hope you will bake your heart out. I'm going to send a clipboard around if anybody would like to help staff the table. We need some volunteers. See you there.
Thanks, Linda. I always make sure I get all my hostess gifts at the holiday pantry, and it's really nice to have those in reserve. Now we have a report from the Wreaths across America. Unfortunately, Karen Novak couldn't be here today, so she sent me a paragraph to read to you all. So the deadline for donating to the Wreaths Across America project is December 3rd. Although the instructions for donating are in our yearbook, there have been changes to the Wreaths Across America website that the yearbook tells you to go to. And those changes were made after our yearbook was printed. So if you wish to donate a wreath, and we hope that you all do, but have problems with the website when you go to it, Karen said, please contact her. If you don't get her directly, just leave a message on her home phone, and she will get back to you to help you to do that. I also have a report from the Bouquet of Thanks Poinsettia project from Sue Kalish and Nancy Wolfe, and they say that the project is looking forward to delivering poinsettias and cards to patients at the Veterans Administration Hospital next month. The delivery date will be confirmed once we hear from Trader Joe's in Liberty Station, who are once again supporting our project. And that date will be put out, if we know the date by the time the Spindrift goes out, it will be in the Spindrift, or we will send out an e-blast. And please, please everyone, read the Spindrift and read the e-blast, because things are changing so much with COVID. It's really the only way we can get that information out to everybody, and we just hate you not to have the change in information that might be necessary to get to you. Sue and Nancy want to thank all of you who took the time to sign cards at the drive-by sale last Thursday. Those are the cards that are going to go with the poinsettias to the patients at the VA. All the beautiful handmade cards made by the Claremont Card Group are now signed and ready for distribution. They are appreciative of your help and support with this worthwhile project. And now we have a tree planting committee report from Penelope.
Hi everyone, both at home and here. I hope you've seen the many articles appearing in the newspaper these days about the importance of planting trees and all the benefits they provide. With the present drought conditions, the best place for us to plant trees is in city parks, rather than streets or neighborhood parks, because that's where there is irrigation and maintenance needed to grow trees. So, we were recommended to work with the San Diego Parks Foundation. That's a non-profit organization whose mission is to improve and invest in neglected community parks, those typically found in middle or low-income areas. If you read today's papers, there's an article just about that issue. The foundation have asked us to help plant trees in the Linda Vista Community Park. Mimi Mortensen and I visited with Martha Phillips of the foundation, and this park has a state-of-the-art skateboard park recently built. However, the playground, courts, picnic tables, and grounds badly need maintenance, which the foundation plans to work on. But there is currently a wide open green space with little or no shade where you'd want it. They have asked us to help with providing trees to be placed where they will enhance the use and enjoyment of the park facilities. And we will work with the city forester in the selection of trees, and the project is slated to start in February. We have another project at the Miramar National Cemetery. As they expand into new areas, there's a need for trees to soften and give a sense of enclosure in its wide open expanses. Linda Shaw is communicating with their landscaper in the selection of trees. Finally, I would like to share a thought that caught my attention recently. The mature trees, shade trees that we enjoy today were planted by someone else many years ago. And now it's our turn to pass that gift forward and plant trees that will shade future generations. So perhaps there is someone special that you might like to honor or remember by donating a tree to our program, so we can pass that gift forward. We have a new updated brochure, thanks to Debbie Handal. You can also find our donation form in the yearbook and on our club's website. Thanks very much.
We also have a report from the Gardeners Exchange Committee. So Clara Blennis and Suzanne Thomas will be setting up their always popular holiday greenery exchange table at the December 16th meeting. Please bring any holiday greenery that you have to share, or ornaments, Christmas decorations, and hopefully we'll have a very active greenery table again. So now comes to the best bit of the meeting, when we're going to ask Kim DeVoe to come up and introduce our speaker for today.
Can you hear me? Okay. Ted Dinard is the founder, president, and head beekeeper of the Savannah Bee Company. His passion for bees and honey began when he was 13, when an elderly neighbor showed him the art of beekeeping. Ted continued to keep bees throughout high school and college, and he founded the Savannah Bee Company in 2002. Today, the company sells its wonderful honey, health, and beauty products in its 15 retail stores and to thousands of stores and consumers worldwide. Oprah Winfrey is a huge fan, and she recently included his honey on her list of Oprah's favorite things of 2021. Ted remains dedicated to sharing the world of bees with others. His bee conservation and education initiatives include the Bee Cause Project, which has put educational beehives in hundreds of schools, opening up the opportunity for a new generation of kids to learn and discover. Ted also supports the Exhuma Foundation's Beekeeping Project. This conservation effort has successfully restored beehives and beekeeping on several islands in the Bahamas. Ted and his wonderful director of marketing, Melanie, have traveled here all the way from their home in Savannah, Georgia, to be with us today. And the title of Ted's talk is I Speak for the Bees. Everyone, please welcome Ted Dinard.
Well, here I am. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. I have to do a requisite fly check, make sure. I really did. I spoke to a garden club. It was in a church in Savannah, and I didn't realize my fly was down until midway in the talk, and then I completely drew a blank and forgot what I was talking about. Anyway. So yes, well, we're happy to be here and honored that you were asking us to come speak. So I do speak for the bees. I do joke that I preach the gospel of the honeybee. I was a religion major. And so I'm going to just bear with me. I'll apologize in advance that I'll just join me on my meandering and wandering here. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, how I got into bees. And then about the beginning of the bee company, how that got started, and then about bees, right? We're here, garden club, and we want to talk about bees and flowers and plants and just that beautiful relationship. And then hopefully we'll have questions. Okay, I'm going to grab my little clipboard. So, I grew up on St. Simon's Island. It's a really beautiful little island off the coast of Georgia. Parents still live in the same house. I've had the luckiest life, I will say that. And I've got a brother and a sister, and they're right there on the island too. So happy family. And then right now I'm in Savannah. I live on Tybee Island, and oddly enough, Highway 80 I think goes from Tybee. It terminates there, and I think it comes all the way to San Diego. So I'm at the terminus, the other end of Highway 80 from you guys. And I love San Diego because this is where I learned to surf, like almost 30 years ago. And one of my first customers was the San Diego Zoo that bought our honey and put it in the gift shop there. 20 years ago, maybe more than 20 years ago. So happy to be here. So I've got 2 boys, love it, and I have a thriving business, and I feel like I have a purpose, which we'll talk about. So when it was 13, I think I was 14 actually, it was in 79. This old beekeeper put bees on my family's land. We had 100 acres of forested land, and he wanted to put bees there, and in exchange, he would teach me about beekeeping, and my dad, honestly, but I'm the one that took to it, and I had no idea, and I'm sure old Roy didn't either, like what an impact that would have, not only on my life, but really, it's sort of like he'd passed the baton or torch that then went on to, in some ways, ignite a whole lot of change in the world. So, worked with him, and I loved honey. I loved holding a frame of honeycomb in the back, up against the sun, and it looked like stained glass, not unlike that little rectangle in that window. And you'd have different colors of honey shining through, and you could poke your finger in it and taste it, and there was a greenish one, which actually we thought was made on the mint, because it was kind of minty, and a yellow one that was I know now from the gallberry or the holly plants, and there's a reddish one from the palmettos, and literally they taste wildly different. There's different sugar compositions, and I loved honey right from the get-go. And honestly, that's basically what I'm doing today, is selling different colors of honey. That's what I grew up to do. From there, he ended up dying. I ended up keeping his bees, and then when I went to college, I rented a cabin. I had a landlord that had bees, and there's a theme here. It just follows me through life, or I follow bees. And he had a huge garden. We made wine. Had a big vineyard. We made mead, honey wine, and of course made the honey. And he was real cerebral and taught me about how the queen bee, all kinds of amazing facts. Like I could stand up here forever and tell you amazing bee facts, because there's so many. But the queen is born a worker bee. She's fed royal jelly, so it's like Cinderella. She turns into a queen. She lives 40 times longer. One of the most fertile species on the planet. She's, all worker bees are female. Did you know that? Girl power, right? Of course you knew that. So just on and on. So I loved. So Roy taught me I loved honey from Roy. I loved bees from Archie. And then when I graduated with a degree in philosophy and religion, what are you going to do, right? So I joined the Peace Corps. And so they send me to Jamaica. And I was super psyched to go to Jamaica because I'd had a reggae radio show for 4 years in college. And I went down and I first off, and this is where I really learned to love beekeeping, like the zen of beekeeping. And that's where I learned to not be afraid of getting stung. And it wasn't because I was down there smoking weed, because I really wasn't. You get kicked out of the Peace Corps if you do that. No, I worked with hundreds of beekeepers. I went through thousands of beehives. I taught beekeeping in schools, 5 different schools, and worked with different communities to do little microeconomic projects, making honey. They could really make some money if they could keep bees, and that really helped. So I felt good about that. That's really where I learned, you can't make sweeping change. It's like lots of little things. It's relationships. And, I went down there very naive thinking I'll do this, go save the world. And I really was naive. But really learned it's the small things that make a difference, like bees, right? So I get back to the U.S. I lived out west. I had a wilderness adventure company, and so I would take kids on wilderness adventures in the mountains out in Colorado and Utah and Arizona. And then I left that with my partner, and she sold the company, and she kept the money, and I kept the debt. It's that old adage that she got the gold mine and I got the shaft. And so I go to Savannah, and I swear I'm working 5 jobs to pay off these bank loans, wondering why I had not studied something much more practical than religion and philosophy, and wondering what am I going to do in life and how am I going to pay these notes off. But I did have 5 hives of bees. I always had bees. And so I ended up selling a few jars of honey to some friends, and my roommate put a jar of honey or some jars in her store that she opened. And in the beginning days, I literally just watercolored a watercolor of a beehive and a tree and a sun in the background. And I would go to Kinko's and make color copies and then just take packing tape and tape it on the jar, and that's what I was selling. I didn't have a price sheet. I didn't know if anybody paid or didn't pay. But stores kept calling, and then I started making Tupelo honey, and Tupelo honey is made from the flowers of a Tupelo tree, the nectar of those flowers. And so that honey was so good, and I didn't want it to be mistaken for just regular old honey, so I put it in this real tall, pretty bottle, and that started getting the attention of a lot of people, including Williams-Sonoma, that put it on the map for me. So I started in 2002. I decided I'm going to really go for this Savannah Bee Company as a business, and I took a leadership course, and I went in, quit all my jobs, and was like, if it's going to fail, I want it to fail in the first year, because I don't have time for this, messing around. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And I went to a trade show and started, to me, I thought I was doing incredible. I think I did like $3,000 in sales. I was probably losing money, but I thought I was amazing. And so I went to the San Francisco gift show, and I started just growing the company. And it started in my kitchen, and then I rented this small, tiny building that we worked out of. And it keeps growing. Williams-Sonoma puts us in their catalog. That really validated the company, both to everybody, that got the catalog, and me, like, wow, maybe this will work. And then we continued to keep growing, moved into this warehouse in 2004. By 2008, we had to move into a new warehouse, that's where we are now. It's 40,000 square feet. And also in 2008, we opened our first retail store, and it's a Savannah Bee Company store, and you sell honey, right? We were thinking, how could we possibly sell that much honey in a day to pay actually make it worthwhile? And we did it so fast, we couldn't even believe it. So we've opened a bunch more, and we now have 15 retail stores. We're about to move into another bigger, almost 70,000 square foot warehouse. We're going to buy that this month. And continue to grow. Like, the business is gone. We've have a tremendous amount of different health and beauty products made, honey and beeswax, and royal jelly and things like that. Make really good, body butters and hand creams and lip balms and all that. And this stuff that's been used from the beginning of human time. And then all types of honey. And then we're also, we've got like a honey hot sauce. I've got some here that hopefully some people can get. We came out with a hot honey, and so today, the business has done incredibly well. We've got a couple, not quite 200 employees. A lot of that's retail, but we're just, a little engine that's fighting the good fight, and we feel like we're just going to keep it in the family and grow this thing and have fun growing this thing, and we really feel good, about what we do, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So that's me, that's bees, and now let's talk about honeybees for real, because they're the greatest, the cutest, and the most admirable kind of unsung heroines, species on the planet. They do, they do more than anybody knows. Let me just say that. All right, so what's honeybees, right? Honeybees are a super organism, right? So the entity is really the whole colony, the whole hive. There's up to 80,000 workers there. So if you can imagine, like, if your body, your organs or cells, whatever, could leave and then come back together, that's kind of what the beehive is. So they have age differentiated duties. So you have workers, you have up to 80,000 workers, you have one queen, you have a few hundred drones, they're the males. So the workers are 99% of the hive, and they do, all of the work, literally. And so when they're the first few days of their life, they may clean the cells and feed the babies, and then the next few days they change, and they might sweep the floor of the hive or make honeycomb. And so they'd spend 3 weeks as a house bee, and then they become foragers, and they spend 3 weeks as foragers, and that's it. That's as long as they typically live. In the winter, they can live a little longer. In the real busy season of honey making, they can even shorter. They just really kind of work themselves to well, they don't have a long lifespan, but it's the colony, it's the superorganism. The queen lives 40 times longer than that. She's fed this royal jelly, right, that we talked about, and that's all she ever eats. She has these pheromones that communicate everything to the hive and can create harmony. The queen, if you have a really aggressive hive, you can replace that queen with a nice queen, like Italian queen bees are really gentle. So you can, and then the whole temperament of the hive changes. It's really, the queens are amazing. Well, we'll tell this story. So when a hive swarms, or if something happened to the queen, she'll lay eggs in about, let's say, 15 queen cells. She changes her pheromone, which tells the bees, hey, we're about to leave, make queen cups. So she'll lay eggs in those. Those start developing egg, larva, pupa, and then around the 13th, 14th day, those queens in those cells will start singing, and they have these singing battles where they're trying to tell the bees, hey, I'm a strong queen, let me out, and maybe help me hatch, because the first queen that hatches kills all the other queens. So she goes along and like spears. She has a stinger that is not barbed. All the worker bees have a barbed stinger. So if you get stung by a honeybee, there's a stinger in you, and that's how you know it's a honeybee. Typically, it's a yellow jacket that's stinging people, but that's a mean little wasp. But yeah, so the queen can do that. So she gets out and and then she reigns supreme in the hive. So the old queen would leave with half the bees to act. That's actually how they propagate. So swarming sounds bad. It looks scary like the old movies, where it's like a galaxy, this cloud of bees flying through the air, and it is. It's 40,000 bees and a queen in there, and it's quite a sight. But they're not aggressive. They have nothing to defend, no home to defend. So it's really just cool when you see it. And they go and they land, and you would see this as gardeners, right? I'm sure you've seen like a big clump of bees. It's a mass. It looks like a basketball or a football shape, and they can hang depending on how many. And they usually hang on a limb or a fence or wherever they can perch, and they send out scout bees to go find a new home, which is a certain cavity about the size of this right here, and they want a defensible opening, and it's protected from weather, and then they come back and actually corroborate the story, each other's story. So the bee tells the other bees in some way, like, I found a great place, here's where it is, and then they'll all go visit these other places, and then they make a decision and they move. So within a day, that swarm that's hanging there is going to go move to a whole nother, to their new spot, and that queen takes over. So worker bees, all bees are hairy, right? Just by definition, bees are soft-bodied and hairy. I think they're super cute. They can visit 500 to 50 to 100 flowers per visit, up to 5,000 flowers just every day. They communicate in ways that just, again, we talked about pheromones. They do dance. There's this waggle dance that they do, where they just wiggle. I think she's got you see that little crazy. So she's telling these bees in a two-dimensional dance where to fly in this like three-dimensional world to find a pollen or nectar source. Usually this is done in the dark of some hollow tree or something. And the bees will actually, and part of it is where the sun is. So one of the angles she does is points to the sun. So then they do some type of crazy math, and they know time somehow, and they factor that in. So if they leave 2 hours later, they know the sun's moved, but they can still find that, that path to the flowers. It's crazy what they can do, and on and on and on. So drones. What do we know? So we talked about queens. We talked about workers. Drones are the males. They are fat. You guys will like this probably. Very fat, they're lazy, they don't do any work at all. They all go and each day their only purpose is to mate with a virgin queen, right? And not from that hive, because the queen bee goes on one mating flight, then she comes back and she never goes on a mating flight again. So she's laying all these eggs up to 1,000, 3,000 a day, even if she wants to build the population up. So those drones, she's laying just for the good of the species, like for, so each hive has, I don't know, a few hundred drones. And so all the drones from all the beehives go hang out in this drone congregation area. And again, it can be thousands of bees. It's in some big clump. And it's like, and they're all just hoping that a virgin queen will fly by. And that they will then fly after her and catch her and mate. And they mate on the wing. So if, I guess I can say this, you guys, some PG-13 here. So if the drone is lucky enough to catch her, or unlucky enough, their penis breaks off in her and they fall down and die. So that's the swan song for a bee, right? For a drone. And I assume they don't know that before that happens. But it'd be quite the shock. And that's the only purpose of a drone, and so then that queen will go back and she can lay either a male or female egg. She can fertilize the egg if she wants to or not. It's just amazing what they can do. This time of year when there's no nectar or pollen coming in, so there would not be a reason for bees to swarm and make a new home. So there'd be no virgin queens, so they kick the drones out at this time of year. So the queen's reducing the population, they kick the drones out, and so the drones, and again, they all live together as a superorganism, so if they're not part of that, they die. So that's the life of a drone. Okay, so we could talk forever about bees, right? I could. But let's talk about the flowers, the flowering plants, and bees. So they're such an ancient species, it's hard to, the conception of time and all that, and geological time, but honeybees have been here a long time, or some version of them. And so basically, a long time ago, there was, just pine forest, right? And no flowering, or hardly any flowering plants, some really simple ones. There were some wasps, and then at some point, and Darwin has this abominable flowering plant problem. Like, why was there this, like an explosion of diversity in flowering plants? So 130 million years ago in the early Cretaceous period, there were almost no flowering plants. And I think magnolias and water lilies were some of the very first. But then all of a sudden there becomes tons of them. Today, I think 94% of all of the plant species are flowering plant species. So, and I'm going to tell you why that is. Because this is it's geological time. So 100 and something million years ago, bees started working in partnership with the flowering plants. So they go over, and so in a flower you have a nectary where there's nectar that the pollinator, in this case the honeybee, goes to, it's like payment for the pollination. So the honeybee, again, is hairy, and so they're going to fly from flower to flower to flower, and passing the pollen from that plant species, and so you get cross-pollination, you get genetic diversity, all of a sudden you're a much stronger species, right? You're going to be able to outcompete your neighbors if you can call the pollinator over. And honeybees have something called flower fidelity. So, in my mind, they've made this contract with the plant world 100 and something million years ago, saying, hey, as long as you'll give us nectar, we'll just go to you. And so when a honeybee goes to collect nectar, she only goes to one species of flower. She won't mix nectar from a different species. So as long as that's the best source of nectar, Tupelo honey would be my favorite, then that's where she's going to go. And so that created a selective pressure, right, on evolution. So the flowering, like the world, you kind of, well, let's go back. So the plants had to start competing with each other. So it went from real simple flowers to like some kind of plain ones to then like these crazy patterns. And bees communicate with plants in a way that like you never know, but they see with different eyes than we do. The flowering plants started creating landing pads and patterns that just bees see. So when the bees look at a flowering plant, I think there's a well, you can't really see, but it's an incredibly different like color scheme, and it looks crazy, like black light, fluorescent in some cases. But it helps to tell the bee where to land. Some flowers will put a static charge in the flower that when it's full of nectar, and after it's visited by bees and the nectar sucked out, the charge goes away. And the bee with its hairy body, when it flies over the flower, can feel the static charge. So that's going to make it more successful. It won't waste time going to a flower that doesn't have nectar in it. So the bees are going to be more loyal to that plant species than another. Some plants, I think the citrus blossoms they have caffeine in their nectar, and bees they like caffeine better than non-caffeine nectar. So they're like us, a lot of us, right? So they'll go there. So there's ways that they have evolved and co-evolved. And so you have this beautiful, poetic, like mutually beneficial, symbiotic way of living in the world that the honeybees have been doing for 100 million years, more than that. And then over time, all of that time, we get here today to this world, and all the flowers you see out there, this world is really because of them. And bees are they're really the lion's share of these pollinators that helped evolution to deliver us a world is the way we've gotten it, right? So I just think that's just the most beautiful thing. I think as gardeners, you guys should think about that, and I'm sure you'll admire them, because I mean it's amazing. One beehive, right? So they well, let's talk about sustainability and stuff. So let's talk about, so these bees, you guys are gardeners, so they're kind of like the master gardeners of the planet in a way. I like to think of them like that, because the earth looks the way it does as far as flowering plants because of them. We have and there's peripheral stuff. So the food that they produce, this sort of it's like a ripple effect of them getting their pollen, and it's producing the seeds and stuff for those plants. But it feeds us. It feeds all of the birds and the animal kingdom, and it helps stop erosion, having healthy plants, and it gives oxygen and scrubs CO2 out. There's lots of things that you don't think of when you think of bees, but they have a really important role that they play. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about a few things that we can take away from bees. One is sustainability. That's a big buzzword, and everybody wants a sustainable lifestyle or business, or and we should, right? Because and then who would be the best role model for that? Well, honeybees. I think they've been here for so long. Obviously, they're sustainable. We like to think that. They were here with T-Rex, right? And so who would you think is going to win the battle? T-Rex or the little honeybees? Well, honeybees, they win, right? And because they're sustainable. And again, it's because they partnered with this mutually beneficial win-win relationship, which I think is so amazing, and it's the way that we should all be, right? So sustainability. When it's win-win, we hope our business is like that too. We think, bees make the world a better place for their having been here, right? And when their work going to flowers makes the world better, I think that's a great role model. So not just for sustainability, but also for just having that type of life, right? You want to leave the world better than you found it. I certainly do. Some ways that the Savannah Bee Company, I want my business to do that is. We support beekeepers in the buying all of our honey and the beeswax and all that stuff. So we support hundreds of beekeepers. They're supporting hundreds of thousands of beehives. Every single beehive each year is going to visit over 500 million flowers. So that little beehive is a huge little eco factory. They're not making just a couple strawberries here and a couple almonds there. I mean, they're, over 500 million flower visits per beehive. So we think supporting beekeepers is a great thing. We have a not-for-profit that you guys donated generously to for the speaking fee, which is awesome, called the Bee Calls Project. And she'd mentioned that earlier, but that's where we put beehives in schools. They're glass educational observation beehives, and we have over 600 schools across all 50 states, each Canadian province, Haiti, Puerto Rico, and the Bahamas that have these in them. So we're trying to raise a generation that understands and will love and protect the honeybee. So we are doing that. And the other way we're trying to save the bees is just raise awareness. So just speaking here today on pretty much most of our packaging, we have little inspiring quotes or bee facts or little things to just, bee puns like be above your usual or little things. It's the little things, I go back to that, right? The little that make a difference in the long term. Like just the bee's flower visit, that one little act, right? That one little thing, or that old gentleman that taught me beekeeping. You never know what's going to happen, but those little things can add up to something big. So awareness is key. We do bee tours every single day, so we have groups come in and we do an inside session, and then we take them out into the beehives and show them the beehives. We have schools and we have garden clubs. We have all kinds of people that come and do that. We even have a bee therapy house that's this Eastern European Russian thing where you sit in this little room with bees or in the floorboards and the benches, and they can't come up into the room with you, but you hear them, see them, smell them, and the air is supposed to be really beneficial for you. So again, awareness, raising awareness is key. So lots of that. Third way, and we could keep going because bees have so many, like business, there's a lot of things you can learn from beehives. But yeah, today I think more than ever, just harmonious living. Bees work, they all work together. There can be so the queen can mate with multiple drones on that one mating flight. There can be multiple races of bees in one beehive. You have some 2-banded Italians and 3-banded Italians and Carniolans and Caucasians and all these different types of bees all within the same hive. And they all are working together for good, the good of the colony, the good of the species. And that collective working together, they're not getting into partisan bickering over the drone or this, they really do work together. I think that's a great role model that we could look to. We're all on this one ship together, right? Just cruising through space. We might as well just enjoy it, right, and help each other out. Okay, that's really what I want to do is get some questions, leave time for questions and stuff. So hopefully you have some. I'm going to say 3 things, though, about some things, because I know one question is hey, what can you do? Bees are under threats today. There's colony collapse disorder that's on, where bees are disappearing, what's happening. We're losing, 30% of the bees and sometimes 45% of the bees every year. I mean, there's some scary stuff out there. But what can you do? And again, it's the small acts collectively. If we could all do them, could make a big difference. And I think you guys are already doing it. If you could plant a diversity of flowering plants, so you have a succession of blooms that are, it's not just one species, but a whole lot. So it's different pollens, which are all rich in proteins and vitamins and minerals, amino acids and trace elements. It's sort of like eating different vegetables too. So you have different color pollens. Bees they need that, right? So plant things that bloom from spring into fall, right? Different species. So that's one thing you can do, and I'm sure you are doing. Reducing pesticides, insecticides, maybe eliminate them if you can, because those can hurt the bees. You could take up beekeeping. Had a couple conversations last night and today about that. It's easier than you think, and it's harder than you think too. But it's one of those things you could start off. Anybody can do it, no matter what your age, from young to older. And it's a constant learn. After 40-something years of beekeeping that I've done, I am still learning all the time. I learned one of the coolest things, and why I know that Bee Calls project is working, is I'll go to an elementary school, and there's some third graders or fifth graders, and they'll, do a little presentation to kind of show me what they've learned. And I am learning from these little kids things that I didn't know. I mean, it like makes me tear up, and I love it. I mean, anyway, it's great. It's great. So, all right, questions in the back. Are we going to see what now? Oh, yeah, right. People are saying that, yeah. So the question is, insects as protein and food sources. Are we going to see chocolate-covered bees? No. I say that only because, in large part, the stinger, I'll give you two answers. No, because, you don't want to eat the stinger. Two, the other answer is, in Africa, they already are eating the larva, especially the drone larva, because, they're nutritious. They're full of proteins and stuff. So people do eat the larva, the drone larva, even now. I guess you could eat the worker larva too, before their stingers have developed. So there's 80,000 workers. Remember, you have you can have up to thousands dying every day and thousands being born every day. Kind of like skin cells, right? They're just kind of coming and going. So the colony could afford to lose some bees. I mean, you can't decimate the beehive. And the beekeepers, a lot of people, maybe they think that, you're hurting the bees. Bees, honeybees especially, really all bees, they all need our help, right? And to have a colony of bees these days, unfortunately, they need a beekeeper to help watch them and make sure that they're not getting viruses and diseases from these mites, which are the real cause of probably this colony collapse. Yeah, you need them to take care of it. And beekeepers love their bees, right? They're not going to kill their beehives because it would be the worst business model ever, right? You wouldn't do that. And I think there's some misconceptions out there. I mean, I've worked with hundreds of beekeepers, hundreds and hundreds over my life. We have hundreds that help supply the honey that we're making, that we're selling now. I've never met one that doesn't love their bees, right? So maybe there's an odd one out there. Okay, how about you in the front? So is neem oil not good for bees? No, yeah, I've never heard that. I do not know that. So I would say I wouldn't think it'd be bad at all. Okay. I wouldn't think that'd be a problem at all. At all. And you're correct, right. So if you see the bees in your yard, they're going to one species of flower for the nectar. So bees collect nectar, that's what they make the honey with. And if you've ever pulled the back of a honeysuckle off, and that little drop of sweet, do you have honeysuckles over here? But that's the nectar. But they also collect pollen, and the pollen, they can go to different species for pollen. So you'll see, it's hard because you can't see the nectar because they have a little carrying tank, and then they have a real stomach. Like if they swallow it in there, they digest it and use it for energy. So you can't see the nectar on the returning bee, but there are some that just are going and getting nectar. Some are just getting pollen, and then some are doing both. But as they're getting the nectar, again, we talked about them transporting pollen. They'll comb it back onto these little hairs, stiff hairs on their back legs. So if you look at a honeybee, you'll see like different color pollen, like usually, it could be white or blue or purple or red or orange. So the bee takes it back. So the nectar is 84% water and about 16%, sugars. They put it in this little carrying tank. I think they pull some of the water out in there, and it adds enzymes, 14 probiotic bacteria in there too, that help keep it from fermenting and that are good for you if you eat fresh honey. But and then they take it back to the hive and they pass it from bee to bee to bee to bee. So they'll pass the nectar to this bee, and then she'll pass it to the bees that are in the hive, right? The house bees. And then they'll put it in the comb, in the honeycomb, and then they'll fan the moisture out of it, whatever's left. They fan it out. So they take the moisture from whatever it is, by the time it hits the comb, down to about 17% water. And that's when it's honey, and when it's 17% and it's full, they cap it over with a beeswax cap. And you can kind of see that we have a honeycomb right there, and it's good forever. So it'll never ever spoil. Literally thousands of years it could sit there and would be still good and edible. Yes. So, right, again, so remember, there's sort of legions of these bees. There's, up to, so let's say it's summertime, it's peak season, spring, summer. You could have 80,000 workers, 40,000 of those, let's just say, are going to be field bees. So that's a lot of bees coming from one hive. How far have they traveled when you see them in your yard? They could be just in a neighboring tree, or your neighbor might have bees, but they can go for miles. They can go 1, 2, 3 miles. They're going to want to go to the closest, would be the most desirable nectar source, because they can make a lot of trips, and they're not going to have to swallow any into their real stomach to digest it to get the energy to fly back. So they're going to go as close as they can, but they can go many miles in search of nectar if they needed to. So there's no way to know how far they've come. But I bet if you have a lot of honeybees on something, that you have a hive really close to you. But you could find one, anytime. And there are over 25,000 different bee species, right? So honeybees are, basically one species. There's 5 species that make a surplus of honey, but the ones that we're working with, that's just 1 out of 25,000. Most of them are little single solitary bees. We see the big bumblebees and we see the honeybees, but there's a lot of different types of bees. Bumblebees make honey. All bees, they all soft-bodied, hairy, and they go to flowers. They don't really go to anything else. But they don't make a surplus. They make it just enough for them. Honeybees are great, and that's why we can take their honey, is because they make 84 pounds surplus every year, which is 7 gallons of honey. So the average beehive will make 7 gallons more than they need for the year. So that's why it works. It's kind of like milking a cow or something. Yes. I wish it was from a plant. There are honeys that I've had this green honey from Sardinia that it tasted like I was eating poison. It was so bitter. And I've never had one that was naturally hot, but I bet you probably could find something. Ours is, we have Scotch bonnet, dried Scotch bonnet. We add to that, as well as this, it's like a habanero oleo resin that makes it super hot. We just came out with that, and that thing is selling like crazy. Yes, so like cattle rustlers, but they're honeybee rustlers, those little mother scratchers. You got to be a beekeeper to know how to steal beehives. So it's bad when you feel like, because I think it's like we're a community, of beekeepers wherever you go in the world. So to think that they would steal them is bad. But yes, that does happen. And one beehive is probably worth about $300 if you're going to build it up from scratch. And if it's already going and with lots of, we talked about how many bees there are. So the queen's laying so many eggs. So you have eggs, larvae, and pupa. They call that the brood. So you have bottom boxes that are full of brood. So those are going to be hatching every day to keep the hive strong, as opposed to having just a brand new hive where you dump some workers and a queen in there and they got to start from scratch. So yes, they are worth a good bit. And then here in California, because of the almonds, so many almonds have been planted that almost every single beehive, every commercial beehive in the country comes to California in February to pollinate the almonds. Because if you don't have bees, you don't get an almond. And you don't get any crop protection or insurance or anything if you don't have 2 hives per acre. So yeah, millions of beehives come over here. And they truck them 450 hives on a semi with a net, and they bring them over, they put them in fields, and then they coordinate getting them into the almonds. It's a crazy, crazy operation. And they get paid $200 and something per hive. So beekeepers commercial beekeepers are increasing the number of hives because that's some great dough. And that's in a time of year they wouldn't be making the honey. So, wow, you're getting let's say you net $200 per colony. If you have, that's good money. So some beekeepers will have thousands of hives, and mainly for that. And then after that, they bring them back and they make honey. I've heard some bad stories, but for the most part, almost, the lion's share, 90-something%, the bees come back and they're in good shape, and they're not harmed or anything from all that travel, and they make a bunch of honey. Did you have a question? Oh, you did. Hey. No. So in those white boxes, you've got these wooden frames. They have the top bar sticks out a little further, so it hangs on a little ledge. And these rectangular frames just hang in there, and you have typically 10. And then you put another box on, another box on. The bottom boxes are for the brood, where the queen's laying all the eggs we talked about. And then the top boxes, they call them honey supers, I guess for the superstructure. But the honey, you pull those off, and they're sealed. You should not pull them off till they're sealed. But when they're sealed, you have to cut that wax capping off. So you can use a hot knife that you can plug in. They make one that cuts the combs off. There's all kinds of ways to scratch it and stuff. But I think the most effective is taking a hot knife and cutting each side, because the comb comes out like this, and then they cap it. So you cut each side off. You put it in a basket inside of a stainless steel, little barrel, and then you spin the basket. So you'll put, 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 or 50 or 60 frames, depending on the size of your operation, in a basket, and then it spins around. The centrifugal force throws the honey out, and then what you're left with is a drawn honeycomb that's empty. It's still a little wet with honey, but not much. And then the honey runs down the inside of that drum and then comes out a spout. But that's how you get it. You can squeeze it out like that if you're in a pinch. Yes. And if they're not yellow jackets, but they are truly bees, like hairy, then was it a bunch of them going into one hole, or there's a bunch of different little holes? Oh, okay. So Right now, I can imagine exactly what you're talking about. So that sounds to me like a honeybee hive, and that if there's a cavity in there that was created from where the tree had fallen or the roots had rotted out and left a cavity, then they would go in there, and then they've got like a dry home that they can start building combs and attaching them to probably some old roots, and they would make a home in that. So where we live, it's so flat, and the water table, literally, it's flat and sandy, so we don't have honeybees. There's no cavity ever in the grounds where they can live, so they just either go in trees or boxes or somebody's house. But anywhere, like in mountains, like rock cavities, they can make homes in there. And so she's asking about botulism and honey, and you don't feed honey to infants under 1 year of age and all that. How should I answer that? I have an issue with this because I used to follow this, like, what's going on? And there was like one case of botulism, that they could trace back, infantile botulism. The babies just don't have the acids to kill the botulism spores and stuff. So, and they can grow, and if they grow aggressively in the stomach, it can kill the child. That's the fear. But in the CDC website, they used to report all the cases and where they came from, and it was infant formula and all these things. And nobody was saying, like, don't feed your kids infant formula. And, like, there's one case that they traced back to honey, like, in the 70s. So that's one answer. Like, I'm not so sure. My kids got honey on their 6-month birthday, I will say that. But there is natural botulism in the soil in California, I think Utah, and Pennsylvania. There's just, for some reason, I guess it's everywhere, but it's more in those states, and I'm sure there's certain areas that it's worse. But so it's not coming from the bees, it's just coming from outside. And so sometimes we actually do tests for that now because some customers require that we do, but we don't find it. You sure can. Yeah, so my story is that I never had more than 50 beehives. So I had 50 hives. I used to travel. I'd make Tupelo honey and honeycombs and sourwood honey from these trees. And then as the business grew, I had to get other beekeepers to help supply the honey. And now that they supply all the honey, and we have the hives for education. So there's a few things. You're not allowed to sell honey. To buy honey from China or bring it into this country. And there's been people that went to jail for that. And so you don't want to do that. But what she was referring to is the transshipping of honey. So Chinese can make a bunch of honey or make some fake honey or adulterate it with some syrups that are not honey. And they could send it to India or send it to, Malaysia. Like, I'll get a call like, oh, I have all this honey from Malaysia or something. And you just got to be suspicious. Like, how do they have that much honey all of a sudden? So I think you have to be smart. If you want to not bring in Chinese honey, you just got to you can test for it, but they're trying to find ways to trick the test, and the Germans are trying to find ways to make the test accurate. So it's a little bit of an uphill battle. I know that's a long-winded answer. Our honey comes from beekeepers almost entirely in the U.S. We get some from Hungary, some from Italy, some from Spain, and they're great beekeepers, and we visit them. But for instance, somebody emailed me last week. It was like, oh, I have a bunch of acacia. It's coming. It's beautiful, and it's from Romania. And I know that there was hardly any acacia honey made this year, like none. Because it took me forever to find some in Hungary, and I was very suspicious. I was like, is that coming from China? And so all of a sudden it's in, Romania and stuff. So I told the guys, like, I wouldn't trust that at all. So you just got to be smart about it. One, we would never want to go to jail. Are people in this country bringing in honey knowingly that's coming from China? And you would be a little cautious, like, is it even real honey, or is it adulterated, or what's in that honey? I hope not, but I think, yes, that there's honey shipped into this country, that people are able to buy it for $1 a pound or less than that sometimes, and they bring it in, and that's probably what's in these a lot of grocery store shelves. I'm not saying all of it by any means. I typically think there's less adulterated honey in this country, but I keep being told that there's more. And these are by people that should know. So my guess is that there's a lot. We could stay up here forever. We'd all go to sleep. There's an anti-dumping lawsuit against all of these big producers like Brazil and Argentina and Ukraine and places that do make a lot of honey. And there are some great beekeepers in these places. So, and I would trust the honey from those countries, Brazil and Argentina, and maybe to a lesser degree the Ukrainian honey. But so that's probably okay, that honey. I don't think they're bringing stuff, transshipping it, but the stuff I worry about that's from India, that's from Vietnam, that's from Malaysia and some places. It's just right there on the Chinese border. It just seems like it's so close. And that's where I kind of worry a little bit about Ukraine and places like that, because that's not too far away either for them to get the honey up there. And it's not that all Chinese honey is bad, because in the European Union, I'm thinking nobody would want that honey, but they bring in a ton of it, and they really are particular about making sure their honey is good. So there's obviously some good Chinese honey, but it can't be brought in this country legally, and we would never do it. Yes, sir. All right, Tupelo honey comes from the Tupelo trees. Those trees only grow in the rivers and produce nectar between like Savannah, where we live. There's the Ogeechee. It's named Nissa Ogeechee, which is like the water nymph of the Ogeechee River. And they grow like in the water, and there's about a dozen rivers between Savannah and kind of the Gulf of Mexico and West Florida that these trees grow. It's an endangered ecosystem. It grows in the cypress. It's a Tupelo cypress swamp ecosystem. And, you know, it's there's a Yuli's, so it never granulates. It is, all honey has a fructose glucose and FG ratio. It's got the highest ratio, so it doesn't spike your glycemic index like diabetics are supposed to be able to eat it, and doesn't mess with them. I'm no doctor. Don't take that as gospel, but so it doesn't. But what it is, it just tastes so good. It's got this real soft, sweet that you put on your tongue, and it just kind of like disappears, and you taste the sweet further back on your tongue versus the orange blossom here, where it's like real candy sweet. And it has this like buttery, bubble gummy, yummy flavor. It's my favorite for sure. But yeah, that's what Tupelo honey is. It's the good stuff. Van Morrison was singing about it. And there's a movie, Yuli's Gold, that was kind of centered around that too. Is that it? Getting the hook?
That was amazing.
So that's Tupelo. You can kind of see it against the light. There's a greenish tint to it, and that's kind of how you know it's. They sell for $120 or something like that. All right, thank you.
No. I'm so lucky because I get to thank you for all of us. I just wish all of our members were sitting there. Oh, well, I was trying not to breathe on Ted, but he and I are both vaccinated.
Correct.
Okay, so now this table was Ted's luggage. He brought all of these things, and so we got the largesse of some of this. So I'd like to figure out who is the longest standing member who's here today. Did anybody join before 1980? What year did you join? Before 1980. Before 1980. What year? Before, the club started in, okay, let's do this here. The club started in 74, so I'm trying to figure out, did anybody join before 1980? Anybody before 1985? 86, 87? I know some of you are around 1990, right? Anybody around 1990? 92? 90, I'm sorry? 92, okay.
92 and 92. We have two 92s.
We have two 92s. Okay, anybody that was before that? Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. Ted brought this fabulous thing. you show them? Tell them what this is.
Right, the Tupelo honey, yeah, that's what I was just talking about. This is
Wow. Maybe she wants to do that. And so Penelope, we're going to invite you to come choose something fun from here. Are there any December birthdays here in the room? Oh, come choose something. What? Come choose something if you're a December birthday. And then, because Roz and I so appreciate the people who are working hard, if you're serving on the executive board or you're a chair of a major committee, you get to come up and choose something quickly, and then everybody can help themselves to something after. So whatever, please. This was so generous of Ted. You get up there, Jean. You're on the executive committee. Choose something. And Kim. Okay, so this is kind of turned into auction central here. Ted? Okay, for those of you who are at home, we're really having fun here, so we hope you'll be here in December, and who knows what we're going to be doing. Thank you.